What's up guys, it's Andy and today we are doing the long-awaited Q&A video, hopefully the first of many to come. Now, the questions that I pulled obviously are just from online, just kind of geared towards a general equestrian Q&A to get people started on their channels. I have mentioned the Q&A video coming up a little bit here and there, but since our community hasn't grown quite that large, I didn't really get any feedback as far as questions go, so I figured I'd answer some general questions for people that are just already subscribed and curious to know more about me and have been watching for the past 2 years. In case you're new to the channel and you want to learn more about me, I figured a nice little tack cleaning Q&A chit chat would be the perfect video to put out for my weekend that I'm not having a lesson upcoming here. I do have to work, so I figured we might as well multitask and get some leather cleaned while we do our Q&A. But first, before we start the Q&A, we've got to wash my paddock boots and half chaps in the sink because they are covered with snow and ice and mud and salt, and we gotta wash all of that off before we start cleaning. So let's go to the kitchen and clean those up. So I did not get to film vacuuming these because we only pull out our cord vacuum very so rarely to vacuum carpets and stuff. And that is what I use to get all the hair off of my blankets. If you do not own a Dyson vacuum, you need to get one because it's like night and day with these blankets, especially during shedding season. Holy cow, like you definitely need one to get the hair off of these blankets. So I opted to air dry my Lemieux this time because it was starting, I don't know if you can see, like to ruin this part of the blanket when I put it in the dryer like a dumbass. So I am not doing that now, and it looks like they're drying pretty well. They're very clean, and it did not happen on this one. So the culprit was the hot dryer, so we are never doing that again. And I am hopefully in the market for some more Lemieux coming up here as soon as they're back in stock, because I can't find the cotton ones anywhere. All right, we're back from the kitchen. Everything has now been wiped down. I did take my Dyson vacuum to my half chaps because when I rode Ladybug 2 weeks ago, she was shedding like crazy and her hair was all stuck in my half chaps. So now that that's taken care of, we're gonna go ahead, start cleaning all of my stuff and start the Q&A. Before we get started, I'll introduce you to what I'm using today. So I just have Feebling's Tack Saddle Soap, Liquid Glycerin. I've got some rags for that. And then I've also got a sponge with my leather balm that I put on after cleaning. And then I do have my Pessoa oil, which I will be taking to my Ovation saddle later on in the video, but I figured we'd start here with some questions first and kind of get going with that. Okay, so question number 1, do you consider yourself a good rider? That's kind of a loaded question. I definitely think more highly of my own riding now than I did before, just based on my trainer's comments and comments from those around me that have kind of given me more confidence that I'm actually a better rider than I sometimes give myself credit for. I don't think I'm a particular expert in any one category or particularly spectacular at any part of horse care or riding or any of that. So I guess, you know, I'm a well-rounded equestrian. I think I'm pretty confident in saying that. What is my favorite color of horse? Anything that's not gray, which maybe that's a little harsh. I think everything has its pros and cons. So with dark horses, I really don't like how they get sun bleached in the summer. And with light colored horses, I don't like how they always look dirty no matter how much effort you've put into grooming them and making them clean. So I guess my ideal horse would probably not be a black horse or a dark bay, but also probably wouldn't be white cremello or really light gray either. What is your biggest riding strength? I think for me, it's that I rarely, if ever, say no. So I will never not do something that my instructor tells me. I'll never ask her to change her lesson plan just because I'm not 100% comfortable with it, or it's something that I'm new at doing and I'm kind of uncomfortable and scared. I like to think of it as motivation for perseverance to kind of like get better by practicing things that maybe I wouldn't do on my own. And then my biggest weakness, which is the next question, greatest weakness in riding, is that I'm very emotional and anxious when it comes to riding. I developed generalized anxiety disorder a couple years back, unrelated to horses, but it definitely affects my riding, and I think sometimes it affects the horses as well. And then vice versa too. If a horse is in a bad mood, it can make me really anxious. I've actually had a panic attack on Summer before because it was just not a good day. So I've had that happen, and I think that's kind of a weakness because it stops me from riding horses that maybe I would have been more willing to ride when I was younger, and it stops me from being a little bit more adventurous in my riding, a little more daring. And it just makes me nervous overall. So hopefully some of that will settle when I have my own horse, and it's something that I can rely on to help me through the hard times. All right, next question is, what discipline do you ride or show? I ride mainly hunters. I ride English. I do not do Western. We'll talk about that in a little bit. I have shown hunters in the past. It just has been a while since my anxiety kind of took over. So we'll see what happens with that in the future. So yeah, I do hunters. Long story short, I do hunters. How high have you jumped? I think the biggest I jumped was somewhere between 3 foot and 3'6". We did not measure. I'll insert a picture here. And that was with Jasper. Is one of my biggest regrets was not measuring that jump. I think it's your general 5 foot standard. So probably between 3 and 3'6". I'm not positive. That's when we were both a lot younger and a lot more crazy and willing to do crazy stuff. Which do I like better, horses or ponies? I have been told I look better on ponies, and that's coming from my trainer. So I guess I take that as a compliment because there's a lot of perfectly grown women who make a living off of training and riding ponies. So I guess that's a good thing. Like, I'm not offended by that at all. But I also had a history of riding really large horses, like we're talking at least 17 hands, if not taller. Rode a lot of horses that were sired by Iron Man here in the Midwest, who is a big jumper, and he produces some pretty big babies. I'm hoping my horse is going to be in the relatively average, height. So like between 15 and 16 hands. I prefer a small horse. How about that? Have you ever ridden Western? Yep, at a birthday party when I was like 12, and it sucked, and I never did it again. Sorry, Western riders, I don't like it. Too much tack, everything's too heavy, too much going on, and not comfortable, sorry. What was your worst fall? Okay, I don't know how to really tell this story and like make it a short story, so I'm gonna do my best. I was racing the person that I was leasing from, and we were going down, or it was kind of like down and up. We were doing some hill work with the horses, galloping them, and I was riding Jasper, of course. And the first time we raced, oh my goodness, this is so hard to get off. The first time we raced, on the first downhill part, he threw a buck and it was fine. Like, I sat it and whatever. But we went around a second time, and I did not stay on the next time that he threw a buck, unfortunately. I still to this day don't actually remember much. I remember having Shannon make me get back on and lead me around the arena. I don't remember getting to the arena. I don't remember going back to the barn. I broke my thumb, which I guess if a concussion and a broken thumb is like your worst fall, that's pretty good. Yeah, and that was it. I did not blame him. I ended up riding him with a broken thumb for like a couple weeks while it healed. I did not go to the ER, which I should have, but I did not want to. I was kind of like running high on adrenaline from the fall, and I was in shock, and I didn't really realize how bad it was. So yeah, we'll not be doing that anytime soon. How long have you been riding? I don't know the exact date or year. I do have a picture, which maybe I can insert here, of me and my old trainer, Carrie, and that was dated May 2004, and I had been riding prior to that. So I'm gonna do an estimated guess of like 18 years. I was young enough that I don't remember everything about it, so that tells me I was around the like between 6 and 8 years old phase, and I had, you know, done pony rides and that sort of thing beforehand, but my very first experience was doing a 2-week riding clinic, and then that's kind of what sparked joy in my life, that is horses. What is your ideal horse? Not going to touch on this one because I'm very bound and determined to buy my own horse this year, and that's going to be the very first video of my Finding My First Horse series that I'm going to be doing. So stay tuned for that, because I think you will enjoy watching me struggle to find my very own horse. All right, as we get to the last couple questions here, I'm going to go ahead and switch over to cleaning my saddle. So if you want to just give me just a second to grab that and get that on my lap, that would be great. Okay, I'm back. So while I'm taking apart my saddle here, I'll go on with the next question. Do you like riding bareback? I'm going to put it this way. I don't do it very often. Also, if you're wondering where my new stirrups are, they're like an inch taller than these ones, and therefore they did not work with my stirrup leathers, of which I already have the shortest stirrup length. So Paul is going to drill me some new holes in this, and then I will be able to try the new stirrups. Back off my tangent. I have very, very rarely ridden bareback, and I am not very strong. Horses are very slippery animals, surprisingly. So it's never been something that I've loved to do. But I think if I practiced and got better at it, yeah, I wouldn't mind doing it every once in a while. Do you know how to body clip pull manes and tails and plait manes and tails? Let's start at the beginning. So I know how to body clip. Would someone pay me to body clip a horse? Absolutely not. It's pretty ugly, a lot of lines. I learned like a long time ago at my very first riding stable where I took lessons. They had me do trace clips on the school horses for the winter time because none of them were blanketed. And yeah, I haven't done an actual body clip since. I do clip like whiskers, ears, fetlocks, that sort of thing, and like around injuries or whatever. But no, I have not done a body clip in a long time. Do I know how to pull manes and tails? I will never pull a tail. You will never catch me pulling a tail. I'm kind of also against shaving up the sides. I mean, it's one thing if you're like A circuit hunters and you have to have that like really weird looking tail thing going on. But manes, I do know how to pull. I prefer doing a combination of pulling, scissoring, and raking the mane to get a more natural look. Plaiting, I have done very rarely. I have a YouTube video from Elphick Event Ponies saved on my phone for if and when I ever have to plait manes so that I know how to do it. And I tried like an egg yolk recipe to like make the hair sticky one time. It was not good. It did not turn out well. I would not suggest it. You can definitely plait with just rubber bands. I was really good at running plaits for horses that have really long manes because I leased an Arabian and I would do a running plait on her. Also, if you're not British, plait is a braid. In case you're wondering, like, what is she talking about? So I would do a running plait on her every time I rode because her hair just like really got in the way all the time. So yeah, I know how to do that. And I have plaited tails for shows before. Again, no one would ever pay me to do it. And I'm more of a fan of using hairspray to get the little scraggler pieces to stay down because, like I said, I am not ever pulling a tail. I like myself a bushy tail. I think that pretty much takes care of all of that. And we got that side of the saddle done, so I'll switch over to the other side. Who is your favorite professional equestrian? Easy, Beezy Madden. She grew up near where I live, so she's kind of like a local equestrian icon to the area. Even in our tack store, we had like a full-size body cutout of Beezy sitting in the corner of the store, which I thought was really funny. If you could train with anyone, who would it be? Same answer as before, Beezy Madden or her husband, John. They have a YouTube channel now called John Madden Sales, and they have their head groom put out a lot of like good videos. They'll do training videos with Beezy and John. John's usually behind the camera, but they're just like the nicest, sweetest, chill people. I would love to get to know them. Like, they're that person that you want in your life for support. So I would say either of them I would train with. What is your stance on spurs, whips or crops, and draw reins? I think a lot of other tools kind of fall into this category, like bits and all that. If you're doing it correctly, they're tools, right? They're training tools to help the horse. And sometimes you've got horses that have a bit of, a thicker layer of fat, so they don't quite translate your calf really well, and so you need a little bit of a spur. I mean, look at Daisy. It really depends on the horse. Look at Daisy. She responds extremely well to a crop, as in it really pisses her off, so it only takes one time to get her to listen. But when I rode her with spurs the other days, I didn't really get that response that I was looking for. So it's all about, here's a stimulus, I need a response, so on and so forth. Now, I do believe people can use these tools incorrectly. I believe that it is our responsibility to learn how to use them properly and to not take advantage of them. And I also think, that it is our job and our responsibility to call out those who are using them improperly and abusively, and to help those who are just using them incorrectly and need to learn the correct way. The last question of the Q&A before I wrap up that and oil my saddle is, what is your biggest riding pet peeve? I think I have a lot of them because I have OCD, right? But currently my biggest pet peeve is people riding during scheduled riding lessons. And I say this because, I love everybody at my barn. Everybody's so nice. But in the winter, it gets pretty crowded in the indoor arena if people are not conscious of when scheduled lessons are. And it's kind of a debate because if I was a boarder, I'd be like, well, I'm paying to use the facilities. I'll ride whenever I want. But on the other end, being the lesson kid, I'm like, I have very limited financial resources right now to get in for a lesson. So I'm paying for that time slot. And if I have to ride around you and wait for you to get out of the way, and, I just look at it like they end up standing in the middle of the arena anyways for 20 minutes until we finish. So why not just come up 20 minutes later, and then maybe the lesson would even get done sooner. So to me, that's my vow, is when I have my own horse, I'm just going to text the trainers and be like, hey, what's the lesson schedule? We know the hours of operation for the whole week, so unless it's like I have to ride at this time or I can't ride at all, which happens and I understand that, then it's try and be accommodating, especially, my two biggest pet peeves during jumping lessons, because everybody else in that lesson has to stand in the middle, so then now you're adding another person to that group, or you're doing your own thing going around, and I either circle or have to stop mid-course because we get in each other's way, and that's just a no-no. Or beginner lessons, like, do you really want to test how well the 7-year-old can steer the 16-hand horse around the arena? I don't. So I think it's, you know, if you can, do not ride during lessons. I just think it's rude. And like, we've had some days where my trainer even looks at me and people are up in the arena like 15 minutes early before their next lesson, or there's like 6 boarders trying to ride at the same time. And we just kind of look at each other and we're like, oh, did everybody just decide we're going to wake up and go ride today? Like, there's just needs to be like a little bit better coordination and rules. I think if you're out there and you're a trainer at a barn, I don't think it's a bad idea to set up a schedule of like, hey, I'm having these lessons going on. I'd appreciate it if you tried not to ride during these times. Obviously, if you're not the owner of the barn, you can't tell people not to ride, but that's my biggest pet peeve right now, currently. As a lesson kid, I don't have my own horse. I don't have my own problems. That way, that's what I'm focused on as far as pet peeve. So I am going to go ahead and quick switch over to oil my saddle, and then we'll meet back here for a little wrap up. All right, so I oiled the leather-only parts of my saddle, not including the underside because the oil has a hard time drying properly down there. And then I took my leather balm and conditioner over the synthetic parts to give it kind of a waterproof coating. I have always been told that please do not ever put tack oil, like the straight up liquid oil, onto synthetic parts of the saddle because it's not actually leather, so you know, you'll just end up ruining your saddle and making it extremely dark. But yeah, so I'm finishing up here by just taking some saddle soap over my new stirrup leathers. I have been instructed that you are not to put conditioner or oil on these, so I'm not going to do that. I think because they're mostly synthetic, so we don't want to mess up the composition of the stirrup leathers. And I want them to be nice and clean when Paul drills me some more holes in them so I can use my new stirrups and see if I actually like them. And yeah, that's pretty much going to wrap up today's video. I'm interested to know, did any of these questions pique your interest, and what are your answers to some of these questions? If you want, leave a comment, like, subscribe if you haven't already. Like I said, we're up to 55 subscribers as of this filming today. I'd love to keep growing, love checking out your guys' channels and kind of getting a chance to talk with you. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed today's video, and we'll see you in the next one.